Hi, I'm David Moskowitz at PropThink, and we're very fortunate today to have the CEO of ARIAD Pharmaceuticals, Dr. Harvey Berger. Dr. Berger, welcome to the program. Let's start off with talking about ARIAD Pharmaceuticals in general.
ARIAD's focused on developing new cancer medicines. Our vision has been to transform the lives of cancer patients with breakthrough medicines. Everything we do in the company is about the cancer patient and about making a difference in their lives.
Great. And what are the lead programs at the company?
We have two major programs that really lead our efforts. One is ponatinib, which is our pan-BCR-ABL inhibitor. This is a product that's well along the way towards, we believe, approval. It's a new medicine for chronic myeloid leukemia, or CML, as it's usually referred to. We also have follow-on important new cancer medicine, AP26113. This is a dual inhibitor of two very important targets in lung cancer, as well as in some other cancers, EGFR and ALK. Each of those are well validated in the setting of solid tumors, and we'll be presenting the very important first clinical data on 113 in a very short period of time at the European Society of Medical Oncology meeting.
Great. It's a very technical story, but one that investors are definitely appreciating. I mean, the stock has gone from $1.50 in 2009 to over $20 today, and it's been a pretty steady rise. What events have really driven the success of the stock?
Really, most importantly, clinical data and progress with the programs. Most of that has been driven by the success of ponatinib. The compelling clinical data that we presented earlier this year at the American Society of Clinical Oncology, showing that patients with chronic myeloid leukemia had really compelling clinical responses, not something that had been seen before with other CML drugs.
And CML, that's the lead indication for ponatinib.
Yes.
That is a big market. Notably, the biggest product out there, the first product out there, was Gleevec by Novartis. Billions of dollars. What can you say to investors to get them confident that your product, ponatinib, if approved, can take significant share of the market?
Well, the overall market for new medicines or medicines for CML is about $5 billion total. And ponatinib has a different profile. Ponatinib is the first pan-BCR-ABL inhibitor, BCR-ABL being the key target that is critical for the development of CML. And ponatinib is able to affect BCR-ABL across many different types of the target, as well as all the resistant and mutant forms that have been tested. So it's really, we believe, a medicine that can be distinguished from others. Certainly the preclinical studies have shown that, and the clinical data of late have demonstrated very exciting results that I think is what's driving investor interest in the story.
So it's a big market, and you have a different mechanism of action. What are the benefits of having that different mechanism?
It's actually, interestingly, the same mechanism of action. It's just, we believe, much better at affecting that mechanism. Gleevec and the other medicines in this area all affect BCR-ABL. It's just that we believe ponatinib does a better job at doing it. It's the first, we believe, of the BCR-ABL inhibitors that blocks all the different forms of BCR-ABL, the resistant and mutant forms, and that's what causes failure to other therapies. So it's we believe a better form, by hopefully a lot, of a BCR-ABL inhibitor.
So if approved, then you believe that this product would be used after one uses Gleevec first. Is that right?
Well, not just Gleevec. The current data, the trial that we presented at the American Society of Clinical Oncology meeting earlier this year, looked at patients who had failed not just Gleevec, but other what are called tyrosine kinase inhibitors. These are the BCR-ABL inhibitors that exist. And so the first indications will all focus on patients who have become resistant or intolerant to other tyrosine kinase inhibitor therapy for CML. So not just Gleevec, but particularly important Tasigna and Sprycel, the other two widely used medicines in this area.
Right. So do you think that patients would have to fail Gleevec plus other therapies before they get to your therapy, or is there an opportunity for your therapy to become next in line after Gleevec?
It's not so much what's next in line. There really are two groups of patients with CML. There are those who are newly diagnosed and those who are resistant or intolerant. And our clinical trial focused on patients who are resistant or intolerant to prior therapy. So it's much less an issue of one or two or which ones, but rather the overall problem of patients who have failed prior therapy.
And some of the follow-on therapies, the ones that were discovered and marketed after Gleevec, have significant toxicity and tolerability issues. Does ponatinib have an opportunity to compete along the lines of safety and tolerability?
Well, in the end, I'll leave it to physicians to make those decisions and regulatory agencies to define what we can say and what we can't say. But certainly the data thus far have shown ponatinib to have a good tolerability profile. We've seen that it's well tolerated by patients who have become resistant or intolerant to the other medicines. And so I think its tolerability is one of its highlights.
And you have a rolling submission of an NDA for ponatinib, which means that you've submitted it, but you're adding data to the package as time goes on, if I'm not mistaken. And you have a phase 3 trial that's ongoing head-to-head with Gleevec. Is the FDA going to require the data or the results from that phase 3 trial before approving ponatinib?
Absolutely not. The rolling submission is entirely focused on resistant and intolerant CML. As we said when we announced the rolling submission, we filed well over 99% of what was needed for the filing. And there is a small amount of information that was still needed that we'll be filing later this month. The EPIC trial, which is what you're referring to, which is in newly diagnosed patients, is part of the future of ponatinib, and hopefully down the road will be the basis for an expansion of the approvals for ponatinib.
Sounds exciting. So when is the phase 3 data, the head-to-head data, or the EPIC trial results expected, and what would be a good outcome? What are you guys hoping for from a head-to-head trial with Gleevec?
Well, the trial was designed to show that ponatinib resulted in a significantly better outcome than in patients with Gleevec, so it's a comparison for superiority. We can't say exactly what the difference might be, but certainly our belief is that ponatinib has the profile and has some of the qualities from what we've seen to date in clinical studies that we should see, or we expect to see, a significantly better outcome than with Gleevec. We expect to have the trial fully enrolled by the end of next year, and then follow up with patients. So, that'll really determine when we should have the results and can present them at scientific meetings, and then ultimately file the data with the regulatory agencies.
So sometime later next year?
Well, we expect that the trial will be fully enrolled by the end of next year, which then means data will be forthcoming thereafter.
So that could be a huge outcome. What can you say to investors to offer evidence that ponatinib could be superior to Gleevec?
Well, yeah, it's somewhat of a technical answer, but if you look at the data in the PACE trial, the trial in patients with resistant or intolerant CML, one of the most important outcomes of that trial was that at about 9 to 10 months of follow-up, the patients had what's called a 30% major molecular response. Major molecular response is a determination of the amount of BCR-ABL that's in the bloodstream. 30% of the patients having a certain response or better is very striking for patients who are this far advanced. That's also the endpoint for the EPIC trial. And so that leads us to believe that we should see very good results in the EPIC trial.
Compelling. And there's another indication that you guys are pursuing, the ALL indication. When could we see registrational data for that?
Well, actually, Philadelphia chromosome positive ALL, or acute lymphoblastic leukemia, is part of the CML filing and part of the CML trials. Patients who are Philadelphia positive, that means that could be CML or that could be ALL, because it's the same mechanism based on BCR-ABL. And so those data are included in the file that was submitted, and we expect when we talk about CML that'll probably include ALL as well.
Okay. And does that expand the market beyond just the CML market that you spoke about?
No, generally when you talk about the CML market, you talk about in the advanced stages of disease and the resistant, intolerant patients. You talk about that including ALL.
Great. Give us a little visibility on the 113 compound. When are we going to see pivotal data on that compound?
Well, the first clinical data for 113 will be presented at the end of September this year at the European Society of Medical Oncology meeting. From those data, we'll make decisions about what the next trials will be, and we've said that we expect to be in a pivotal, at least one pivotal trial for 113 next year.
And what do you anticipate that compound would be indicated for?
Well, it's a new cancer medicine that inhibits two of the very important, well-defined targets in lung cancer. So one, let's say, is called ALK, anaplastic lymphoma kinase. And there is one approved drug in this indication, a drug called crizotinib. And most patients, if not all patients, eventually fail crizotinib. It's also called Xalkori. And we've designed 113 in such a way that it overcomes, we believe, the resistance and the failures that occur with the first-generation drug, much like the story with ponatinib. So that's one of the potential indications and potential uses for 113.
So ARIAD is now a multi-billion-dollar company, 2 late-stage assets, and plenty of cash. I believe at the end of the last quarter, you had $250 million in cash.
Correct.
Where does this company go strategically?
Keeps doing what we do well, keeps discovering new cancer medicines, pushes the development forward of ponatinib and 113, launches ponatinib in the U.S. and Europe, and then in Japan as well. And we build a global oncology business around the new cancer medicines that we discover, develop, and then commercialize.
So the strategy is to market and sell the product on your own.
Absolutely.
Very good. Dr. Berger, thank you for joining us. It was very informative.
Thank you very much.